Well, hey, if you had a choice of which day you came and which session you came for, and you came to this one, thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here, and we're very glad to be growing and strong in Ukraine. What I'd like to do is share with you some thoughts I have about where ArchiCAD is in BIM, where we are in the world, and what that means to you here as architects, and how the new technologies and directions we're heading in might be of interest to you. And I think there's time for questions if you want to ask me for new features too. I'll start with this idea. So believe it or not, you can tell from my chiseled physique that I'm an ice hockey player. I enjoy playing hockey, but I've always enjoyed this quote from Wayne Gretzky, that you go to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been. And that's how you win in hockey or in football or whatever. You have to anticipate the play. You have to understand where the open space is. And that's what we as a company are doing now. We're really evaluating what the futures are for BIM and in this market. And so I've been CEO at GRAPHISOFT for about 6 or 7 months. And what I'd like to share with you sort of 5 themes of insights that I have in learning around the world with our customers and with the market and internally at the company about where we are and where we're going. And I guess the first one is around building on success. So there's a lot of great things in GRAPHISOFT. There's a lot of great things in our products. We have 3 core, very strong products in ArchiCAD, BIM Cloud, and BIMX. And they're really well loved by our users around the world. The adoption rate is great. The growth rate is great. They're really strong products. And they support each other, but they're not really leveraging each other. So I think my first insight is there's a lot of success in these products that can be built on. That we can expand the platform of technology to enhance the capabilities that we give to you, all of our customers. And as so in these first few months, I've traveled all over the world and seen how ArchiCAD is used. And it's a pretty broad spectrum, to be honest. We have markets where we are very dominant in the market, and others where we are emerging in that market. And there are big buildings and small buildings and houses and hospitals and concrete and steel and every different kind of methodology of how those buildings are done with our customers. And I asked our marketing department for a slide that kind of showcased key customers around the world. And I think we need to improve on the slide because you can't really read any of those logos. But the point is there are great companies around the world doing really inspiring things that we as a company can learn from. So in the course of learning all that, what I realized is that I've been in this industry I'm an architect. I practiced architecture for about a dozen years. And then about 20 years ago, I moved to the software industry. Now you know how old I am. But I've long known that ArchiCAD and GRAPHISOFT are key products and a key player in the market. But from the outside, I didn't realize how strong the position is. I didn't realize how globally dispersed and how deeply entrenched in markets GRAPHISOFT is. And I think Diego shared this slide yesterday, but we are #1 in many key markets around the world, and we're #2 in many others, and we're a strong player in the rest. And I think yesterday shared that we've recently become #1 in Japan. That's good for us because winning is fun. So I like being #1. What does it mean to you? What it means to you is that as we learn around the world, as we see the different ways, different markets, different construction methodologies, different ways of using the software take place, we can learn from that and share those lessons across the world. So there are some really interesting things that the Japanese market is doing with integrating design and construction. There's some really interesting things in terms of efficiency and productivity happening in Brazil. There's some really interesting things about the general urban planning space integrating with architecture happening in Germany. And we can learn from all of those things and add the value in those lessons into what the software does and how we can help you use the software in those ways. So I think it works in both of our favors for us to keep doing that. The other thing that I didn't really realize until I joined Graphisoft was, of course, the press says nice things about us. And this is a quote from AEC Bytes, kind of highlighting the fact that we have a relationship with our users. And I think a lot of companies like to say that, but I think it's really true at Graphisoft. I think we and our partners around the world we don't think of it as a transactional sale. We're not selling you a product. We're establishing and entering into a relationship with you to help you achieve something. You don't do BIM because you want to do BIM. You do BIM because you want to make great buildings. You want to be a successful architect. You want to be able to make a mark on the world, to be more profitable, to help society, to achieve your goals. And our job is to help you achieve those goals, not to sell you some software. The software is the tool, and that's great, and of course we do want to sell you software, but we're doing it for a purpose. And I think that relationship is really clear in the ArchiCAD community around the world, and we really encourage you to ask that of us. Come to us not with just what little tweak you want in a feature. What are you trying to achieve? What are your aspirations as an architect or as a practice or as an engineer or a contractor to elevate how you use BIM and how you use our products and demand that we address it and tell us what you need, because that's how we learn to do what we need to do next. Fundamentally, I think Graphisoft as a company has strength but hasn't been very loud at proclaiming and being proud about it. So my message internally to Graphisoft and to our partners is to turn the volume up to 11 and really be proud and strong and let the world know that we're out to win, and we're out to understand what you want to do, and we're going to help you do it. So my third one is about equipping ourselves for growth, and I use the word ourselves in two ways. So it's obviously us, a company, but it's also us as a community with you, our customers. How can we do the things we need to do to help us all succeed and advance at a faster and better pace? And I think one of the great tools that Graphisoft has is we're a part of the Nemetschek Group. And the Nemetschek Group has products and technologies that span all different aspects of infrastructure: buildings, civil infrastructure, project collaboration, facility management, and even some products that are, in some markets, actually competitors of ours. And we as a company have the opportunity to take advantage of that. I've been spending a lot of time with the CEOs of these other companies learning about what do they see in the market, what do their customers want, what do their technologies do for their customers that we could learn from. And we're all owned by the Nemetschek Group. So for us to exchange information, for us to exchange technologies even, is easy, because it's a positive win for Nemetschek, who pays the bills, and they'll be happy to let us make that exchange. So that's one of the things that I think we're going to be leveraging a lot in the very near future, is building on the technologies and the market expertise and the know-how across these brands to share information, share technologies, and integrate these products in ways that hasn't happened in the past. The other way of empowering us as a community is through know-how. In working with architects and engineers around the world for 35 years, Graphisoft knows a whole lot about how architecture gets done, right? Not just the software, but the workflows, the communication processes, the pitfalls to be avoided. And one of the things that we're doing with our education group is shifting from just having training and classes about how to use the software, but how does the software fit into an architectural workflow? How does it, if you're doing BIM, you balance your resources, you shift your time, you change the skill set, you change the responsibilities amongst your team in your office. It's a different workflow. It's a different way of delivering a project from kind of the architect and the draftsman and the CAD person kind of model. And we're building classes and curriculum to help you understand that difference and to help you navigate that change and really teach about how to use technology to deliver architecture in addition to just how to use the software as a tool. And I think that that's an important distinction, and it's an important value add for you. I don't think too many of those classes are in Ukrainian yet, but we'll get there. But we definitely are committed to that, as shown by having a Ukrainian version of the software. I think it's nice to be able to say I think we're the only Ukrainian BIM software at this point. I think tying it into the professional discipline is a key point here. So the next one I'll talk about really quickly is innovation. So first of all, we think we have a lot of innovations in our software. So the new version 23 has some pretty cool new technologies, new features, new capabilities in it. Some of them are kind of deceptively cool. The one that I like to pick on is the openings tool. The new openings tool, if you think about it, it's just a hole, right? It's not all that exciting. But the fact that you can manage them and you can link them to things and they can be dynamically changing and moving in relation to other design decisions is actually a really powerful tool. It's a really innovative tool that no other software has. And so those kind of feature-based or capabilities within the software is one type of innovation that we do. But there's other innovations that we have to pay attention to. So if you look at our collective market, and you look at this is a graph of productivity in a couple of key industries in the world over the last 20 years. And no surprise, the line at the bottom, the red line, is the construction industry. So design and construction of the built infrastructure. And basically, it's almost flat. There's almost no improvement in productivity. And if you look at manufacturing at the top, production services, all have advanced. And generally, human productivity as a whole, if you take all the industries, has advanced. Technology, workforce changes, education, automation, all these things have advanced the productivity of the world. And construction is really lagging. And I think one of the key reasons for that is shown in this graph. So the graph shows on the right, the further to the right you are, the more productivity growth in the last 10 years that industry has had. And the higher up on the graph, the more digitization has happened in that industry over those last 10 years. And so, no surprise, the top right, information technology, is the most digitized and has had the most advancement in productivity. The other end of the spectrum is construction. And so the construction industry as a whole is the least digitized industry and the least change in digitization in the industry of all the major industries. And it's funny, because if you read the press about our industry, you will read articles about GPS-enabled bulldozers and laser scanners on site and sensors on materials as they're delivered to the site. And so it sounds like we're really digitized, but they're all very isolated conditions, and they're not connected, and they're not integrated into the process. So that's our duty as a technology provider to look at those other digital opportunities in the industry and integrate them in the tools and the platforms that we provide for you and the industry as a whole. So that's a key focus for us at GRAPHISOFT looking forward. And why does that matter? What's the biggest impact of that? So a version of this graph has been a focus point of this industry for many years, but it's really true, and it's still true, that if you think about the design process, the documentation process, the handover process, the construction, operations, there are these increasing value of information, increasing understanding of the project that happens in each phase of the work. And then as it moves to the next phase, a whole lot of the information gets lost. It's either lost because the data is not transferred, or it's lost because there's a contractual difference between, and a lack of trust between the two parties or different systems. And that loss of information is waste. It's time, it's money, it's mistakes. And the further you move in the life cycle of the building, the bigger the drop is each time, and the more the cost to the building, the project, the participants, you, the professionals involved, and the owner increases. And so one of our goals is to try and minimize those drops and keep that information useful as possible, as long as possible in the project. And one tool that we've used and are very committed to is the concept of open BIM. Now, the point of open BIM is making sure that information can move amongst products, amongst tools, amongst processes, without being locked into where it came from, to the ArchiCAD model or whatever it may be. So to be able to take that model and give it to your structural engineer and have it have everything that engineer needs to do their work, and vice versa, and then move it along through facility management or other tools. And this is great, except it is a standard. And one of the quotes I heard years ago about standards is, the best thing about standards is that there's so many of them, right? And every standard is a lowest common denominator. So it is always going to be less innovation than in all of the different pieces that support that standard. So we need to do more than that. We're still committed to this very thoroughly, but we're also looking ahead. So if you think about CAD or BIM, over the years, what has always, for a long time, has been possible is exchanging information at a project level. You reach the end of design development or end of your construction documents phase, and you hand over the model to the next guy, to the engineer, to the contractor, whoever. And they can do whatever they do with it, but there's one of those big drops. If you think in BIM, what we can do in ArchiCAD now and have been able to do for many years is exchange information at an element level. So through BIM Cloud, you can take your wall or your beam or your window and exchange the information at that level and interact with it amongst participants on the project by, I'm going to work on the window now, and then I give it back, right? And that's a BIM Cloud kind of workflow. And that's good, except that maybe you need to be more precise than that. So what we're looking at and what our vision is going forward, and you'll be hearing more about this through the course of the coming year, is allowing that exchange and that collaboration to happen at the parameter level. So within an element, multiple people on the team can be working on the same element at the same time. One person's working on the materials, another working on its location, another working on its finishes, perhaps. Maybe the interior designer is deciding what color to paint it, and the structural engineer is deciding what grade of concrete it should be. And that integration at that level is not just a point in time, but it can be an integrated practice of exchanging information. And we think this will help allow that information to bridge those gaps better. So my last insight is that water tastes good, is about one team. So I'm a big team-oriented guy. And if I think of GRAPHISOFT, I've already mentioned this notion about sharing information and best practices and failures and everything else from all around the world. Well, I did say I play ice hockey, and here's actual proof. That's me. And I think one of the things about hockey is that, first of all, you like to win, but it's also a team sport. And no team ever wins by having the one superstar and that person carries the game in any sport, in any team activity. It's always, there's a setup person, there's a coach, there's a person who passes, there's a scorer, there's a goalie, whatever. And that's true in our industry too. You as architects have engineers, you have contractors, you have the owner, you have the building materials manufacturers, you have your software providers, all on the team. And so our approach to dealing with the industry is that we're all on the same team, we're all working together towards the same end. And maybe I'm not quite as good as Ruslan Fedotenko, my favorite Ukrainian ice hockey player, played on the Philadelphia Flyers, my home team. But I think the the spirit of teamwork is central to how we're going to be approaching the market going forward. So maybe I'll change that to a hockey puck instead of a football. The last thought I'll leave you with is this quote that I've enjoyed for many years. It's literally true that you can succeed best by helping others to succeed. And that's I think, a core principle of how Graphisoft looks at our service to you, our customers. Our job is to help you succeed. And that's part of that relationship approach. And so when I say, tell us your needs, tell us your objectives, tell us your aspirations, in addition to your complaints, which we're happy to hear too, or features that you want, that's all about helping you succeed. So we hope we can keep doing that, and we wish you great success here in Ukraine and wherever you work around the world. Thank you.
Коллеги, может, у этот вопрос есть, Хью, мы, если что, поможем перевести.
Hello. Why did you move from practice to software development? What was the point?
Yeah, good question. So when I was in practice, I had two kinds of practice. I had my own firm for a while where I did houses, and I was in much more control of those projects because of their scale. But I also worked at a really large firm and I specialized in hospital design. And I was using, at the time, AutoCAD as a technology platform, which was horrible. But I became very frustrated that I knew that computers were powerful tools, and I was seeing what was happening, and this is in the 80s, right? So, or the early 90s, and the computer in other industries was having, word processors and spreadsheets and databases were having huge impact on the business, and I was trying to handle medical equipment schedules in a hospital, and I couldn't even do that. So I started learning programming AutoLisp and some other development languages, and as an architect, just so that the computer could do the boring stuff, so I could design the lobby or whatever I felt like doing that week. And so in the process, I became very connected to the technology side of things, and that turned into my design problem. So my interest in how technology could advance the industry became my next building. And that got me interested in that, and then I shifted over to a technology company.
Do you have any plans to integrate all the plenty of Nemetschek products into some kind of a single web platform or like a single source of information between all of this stuff?
Yeah, so there's a lot in that question. So today the products in the Nemetschek group are independent products that have their own data formats, their own user experience, everything else. And what we're doing now is we're looking at what are the common threads that can tie them together. And so our first energy is on the twofold. One is, what is the data platform that we can use to share information throughout the family of products, but also in a way throughout the life cycle of a project. And that's kind of a technical basis for things. The second is the use case. So we see some products that are they're instantly, affinity to each other in the market. In fact, so a great example with ArchiCAD around the world, the use of Celebri. Those two products just go together so perfectly, even if neither company has particularly done anything super advanced. They just fit, right? So that's great, but if we work together, we can even take that to a higher level. So, and we work with Celebri, and so do some of the other brands. So why don't the three of us talk? So we're doing it on kind of the workflow basis amongst the products, and that's going to be the fast fix. But we're also looking at that deeper kind of technology platform, which will take a few years.
Thanks.
Yep.
Which competitors do you count better than you in software?
So say again?
Which competitors do you count better than you? Better than GRAPHISOFT?
Well, on one hand, none. No, I think the reality is there are successful software providers around the world, and they're successful for good reason, right? So we have to, on the one hand, be confident in where we are better, but if one of our competitors is doing something well, we have to pay attention and learn from it. So I think there are pieces here and there that we look at, but fundamentally, I think for architects, I don't think there is a better BIM software on the planet. What we don't have is structural engineering or something else. So the integration with other disciplines is an area that we're very heavily focused on. Open BIM is a great solution for that, and the Nemechek group is a great way to extend that. But that's an area where we're growing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, throw it from there. It has to be.
The ceiling is too low.
How far the GRAPHISOFT team looking when he's preparing their products? For example, would you know when you're preparing the ArchiCAD 20 that at 23 you have new opening tools, beams, columns, changings? How far you looking at in versions? The first question, and the second, how we users and our feedback, our community's feedback can influence at the next versions of the products.
Okay, so
Thank you.
Two good questions. So I think on the first question, we look at multiple scales. So on the one hand, there are projects underway now that we know are going to take 2 more versions before they're done, right? And there are other projects, so the column and beam enhancements in 23 started during 21, right? So they spanned a couple of versions to get there. There are also, we have agile development in our teams. So we have groups that are working on a 6-week sprint. And a new feature can appear that didn't even exist 6 weeks ago. So we have some things that are very short cycle and some things that are very long cycle. One of the things that ties that to your second question is I think we need to do a better job of sharing our roadmap with our customers. So there are things that we're working on for the next version and the version after that that it would be good for you to know about so that you can plan your future and give us feedback on them. We have to be careful because we don't want to tell those other competitors that aren't as good as us what we're doing so that they work on it too. I think in terms of how we can get your input, certainly you can talk to the folks that support you here locally, and we will get it from them. We also are, we have our big annual conference. This year is going to be in Budapest in the beginning of July, and there's great interaction at that event. But fundamentally, there is through your technical support, through the partner, through your local people, just tell us. It will get back to us for sure. And we value that input greatly. And if you don't get an answer back after you've asked for something or suggested something, go back and say, well, give me an update. Or email me. That's fine.
Okay, Hugh, thank you. We have to move on.
Yep.
So thank you a lot again.
Thank you.